In a notable shift of tone on immigration, President Trump has unveiled a plan to grant what he calls a temporary pass to undocumented workers in crucial sectors of the U.S. economy. The plan is aimed specifically at industries like farming and hospitality, which often rely on a stable, long-term workforce. In recent comments, the president expressed a desire to balance his administration's tough immigration enforcement with the practical needs of these businesses. He stated, "I cherish our farmers," and acknowledged the disruption caused when experienced workers, some of whom have been on the job for 15 or 20 years, are removed. The president described the dilemma he faces, noting he is both the strongest immigration guy that there's ever been, but also the strongest farmer guy that there's ever been. He highlighted that much of the labor is hard work to do, and a lot of people aren't going to do it, and that sudden enforcement actions could end up destroying a farmer. Under the proposed plan, a new system would be developed to allow certain workers to remain in their jobs legally. This would be a kind of temporary pass, where workers would pay taxes, and employers, such as farmers, would have more control and stability in their workforce. The president emphasized that this potential leniency would not apply to everyone, stressing that the primary focus of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, would remain on arresting and deporting what he called criminal aliens. This policy discussion comes as the administration has overseen a significant drop in border apprehensions and is actively encouraging non-criminal migrants to self-deport, even offering up to $1,000 and free travel out of the country to those who volunteer. However, while the administration signals potential flexibility for some employers, it is simultaneously taking a much harder line against cities that implement policies to shield undocumented immigrants from federal authorities. The Department of Justice has now filed a lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles over its sanctuary policies. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the suit, arguing that LA's policies unlawfully interfere with federal immigration operations. The lawsuit contends that by restricting ICE's access to detainees and prohibiting city contractors from sharing information with federal agents, Los Angeles is discriminating against the federal government. The Justice Department is invoking the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which establishes that federal laws generally take precedence over state and local laws. They are asking a federal judge to block the city from enforcing its sanctuary policies. This legal action follows a period of intense turmoil in Los Angeles. Earlier this month, ICE operations in the region sparked widespread protests and riots, which led to a controversial deployment of the National Guard and U.S. Marines by President Trump. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass has publicly blamed federal authorities for the unrest. She accused ICE of provoking the city's residents by conducting aggressive enforcement actions at locations like schools, emergency rooms, and homeless shelters. The mayor further alleged that the administration used the resulting chaos as a pretext to send federal troops into an American city, a move she strongly condemned. Turning to international trade, talks between the United States and Canada are set to resume immediately, following a brief but tense standoff over a proposed Canadian tax. The White House confirmed that negotiations are back on track after Ottawa agreed to scrap its planned digital services tax. The tax, known as a DST, would have primarily impacted the revenue of large U.S. technology giants. President Trump had strongly objected to the measure, and on June 27th, he announced that trade talks between the two nations had been terminated as a result. The move put significant pressure on the Canadian government. Just 2 days later, Ottawa announced it would introduce legislation to completely rescind the tax. Kevin Hassett, a key economic advisor in the Trump administration, confirmed that talks are absolutely resuming without delay. According to Hassett, the issue was first raised by President Trump during a meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney at the G7 summit earlier in June. The swift reversal by Canada has paved the way for the two closely linked economies to continue their trade discussions, averting a potentially damaging economic conflict over the taxation of digital services. Back in the United States, with the 2026 midterm elections just over 2 years away, the Democratic Party is launching a new effort to build momentum at the grassroots level. The Democratic National Committee, or DNC, has kicked off a nationwide initiative it's calling Organizing Summer. The stated goal is to mobilize volunteers, increase voter registration, and directly counter the Republican agenda ahead of key elections in 2025 and the pivotal 2026 midterms. DNC Chair Ken Martin said the initiative is designed as an early push to challenge Republican policies, which he characterized as harmful to working families. As part of the campaign, the DNC plans a series of in-person and virtual events aimed at highlighting what they describe as damaging aspects of President Trump's tax and spending priorities. The strategy also includes more direct actions, such as organizing activists to visit the district offices of Republican lawmakers to deliver petitions and voice their concerns directly to congressional staff. The initiative represents a broad effort to build organizational power from the ground up, well in advance of the next major election cycle. And one of the fiercest legislative battles is currently centered on a major budget bill moving through the Senate. Republicans have just cleared a critical procedural hurdle in their effort to defund Planned Parenthood. According to Senate Democrats, the Senate parliamentarian has ruled that a provision to block federal Medicaid funding to the organization can be included in the GOP's sweeping tax and spending package. This decision is significant because it means the language does not violate the chamber's strict Byrd rule, which governs what can be included in a budget reconciliation bill. This ruling paves the way for Republicans to use the reconciliation process to pass the measure with a simple majority of 51 votes, thereby sidestepping the 60-vote threshold typically needed to overcome a Democratic filibuster. The provision in question, which is part of the Trump-endorsed One Big Beautiful Bill Act, would prohibit Planned Parenthood from receiving any Medicaid reimbursements for 1 year. The ruling from parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough was made public in a statement by Democratic Senators Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden of Oregon, who strongly opposed the measure. This development sets the stage for a major partisan showdown on the Senate floor over federal funding for the nation's largest provider of reproductive health services.